Let's make some cream cheese chicken enchiladas. In a medium sauce pot, you need 3 tablespoons of salted butter, and you need to get that melted. Now to that we are going to add 2.5 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. And you want to stir that together to make a roux. Now because flour doesn't come seasoned, now your butter is salted, but the flour doesn't come seasoned. And you're going to add a lot of unseasoned ingredients to this. Now you want to add a couple of good pinches of salt and some good grinds of black pepper. If you don't like black pepper, you can leave it out, but it does add a lot of flavor. Now I'm going to add just a little sprinkle of granulated garlic. You can choose to add that or leave it out, but it does add a lot of flavor. Season with your heart on that. Now you want to let this cook for about a minute or so that the raw flour taste gets cooked out of it, because you don't want this to taste like raw flour. This is an absolutely amazing white sauce for these enchiladas, and you don't want it to taste like flour. So now we have anywhere from 2 to 2 1/4 cups of milk. I will explain why it's a variation in just a second. You want to add about 1/2 cup to start off, and you want to work that in. And you will notice it's starting to get thick on you. Don't pour the whole thing in at one time, or you're going to end up with a lumpy sauce. You don't want a lumpy sauce, you want a nice smooth creamy sauce. So you want to work that in until you see it starting to thicken. Once you see it starting to thicken like it is right now, then you will add another 1/2 cup. Now the reason I said 2 cups to 2 1/4 cups is because it depends on how thick it is. If it's too thick, you may need another 1/4 cup. That's another reason why we are adding it slowly, to see just how much we really need. Now you want to stir this until it's nice and smooth and starts to thicken again before you add your next installment. Now we're starting to thicken, so I'm going to add another 1/2 cup. Now this is not going to get like super thick. This isn't going to be an extremely thick sauce, because the next ingredient that you have to add is going to help thicken it up a lot. So you don't want to get it overly thick right off the bat, because then you will have to cut it out of the pot, and that's not good food. Now the last installment of your milk, which takes it up to 2 cups, has now been added, and now it's starting to get warm and starting to get thicker. Now you want to keep going until it starts to get thicker. It may even come to a slight bubble, but you want to keep it moving. You want to keep stirring it, because you don't want it to start thickening on the bottom, because it will start to burn on the bottom and your milk will scorch, and you don't want to do that. I've done this whole sauce over medium heat because I have a heavy bottom stainless steel sauce pot. If you have something that's not so heavy bottom, you may want to turn it down a little to keep from it scorching. Now you want to make sure, before you do the next step, you want to make sure that this is nice and hot, because you need it nice and hot so that it will melt the next step. Now at this point, you want to make sure that you taste it to see if you need any more salt or pepper or garlic powder. Well, granulated garlic, which by the way, there is a difference in the two. And I think it needs a little bit more salt. So I'm going to add a couple more good pinches, because milk does not come from the cow seasoned. And if it does, your cow has a problem. Now it's nice and hot, and we are going to work in 8 ounces of full fat cream cheese. I do not recommend fat-free or low fat. You're going to work it in about little cubes like this, about 3 or 4 little cubes like that at a time. You don't want to do more than that, because it won't melt pure. You want it to melt completely pure and melt in fully. This cream cheese is going to help thicken the sauce greatly. This is why you wanted it to be getting so hot, so that it can easily melt this cream cheese. And this cream cheese has been set out at room temperature. It will make it melt a lot easier than just taking it straight from the refrigerator and cutting it into chunks. Do not add your next 3 or 4 chunks until those are fully melted in. Now keep doing this. Keep adding it 3 to 4 chunks at a time until they're all melted in, until it's nice and smooth and creamy and all your cream cheese is in. Now, see, your sauce is very smooth and creamy and just velvety, and the cream cheese thickened it so much. But at this point, you want to taste it for seasoning. I already tasted mine. I felt like it needed another little pinch of salt and a little bit of fresh cracked black pepper. And now you want to turn your heat off and remove it from the heat so that it doesn't keep getting too warm and possibly scorch. Now we are going to make our filling for the enchiladas. So for cream cheese chicken enchiladas, you need chicken. So this is about 3 cups of shredded cooked chicken. Now, with this, you can cook it any way you want to. You could even use rotisserie chicken that you've shredded. Now, I prefer it roasted. I just roast these in the oven or the toaster oven with a little bit of salt and pepper and olive oil. And then I shred them up. Now to this, you are going to add a 1/2 cup of your white sauce that you just made. This is the reason you can't build your filling beforehand, because you need part of that white sauce. You only need about a 1/2 cup because the rest of it will go on top. Now to this, we are going to add a 4-ounce can of diced green chilies in their juices. There will be a little bit of juice in there, but it helps with making the filling nice and juicy. Now you will want to add just a little bit of salt, because I seasoned my chicken when I roasted it. If your chicken isn't so seasoned, add a little more salt. But you want to add some black pepper, and once again, echoing the flavors, some granulated garlic, but season with your heart. However much you want, use it. Now we have a 12-ounce jar of green enchilada sauce. Now this is my favorite brand. I use the mild. You can use hot if you like hot, but I use the mild. This is the best brand that I have found. You want to pour in, this is a 12-ounce jar. You want to pour in slightly over half. Just eyeball it. It's about 7 ounces. Just eyeball it. You don't have to pull out a scale and weigh it. Now you want to stir all of that together, and it makes a nice, juicy, wonderful, delicious filling for these enchiladas. Now, of course, you want to taste it for seasoning. Now our filling is all mixed up. See, it's nice and juicy and delicious, and it is absolutely a delicious filling. So now we have a 13 by 9 glass baking dish that I've sprayed with, well, actually Jason sprayed it with cooking oil spray. Now I am using coconut oil spray because, as you can see, it re-solidifies and stays put instead of all running to the bottom. Now we are going to take the rest of our green enchilada sauce and pour it in the bottom of our pan. You want to make sure that it's spread out to all corners. Now I have my flour tortillas. If you watched the last video, I showed you how to make these homemade. Now, usually I do this assembly line style. I lay out all my tortillas. This, you can make 8 to 10 enchiladas depending on how many people you need to feed or whatever. Me and Jason use this for a 2-night meal, so usually I make about 10 to 11, and that's usually even way more than we need. So I lay all of my tortillas out, and that way I can divide my filling accordingly. And you put a little bit right down the center. Just do a little line of your filling right down the center of your tortillas. You want to make sure that it's right down the center. Now, yes, you will see me using my hands a little bit to help push it where it needs to go. My hands are clean. If you've watched me before, you know my favorite tools in the kitchen are the ones God put at the end of my wrist. Now I have them as evenly filled as I possibly can without measuring it out. As long as it looks good from 50 yards on a galloping horse, I'm fine. So now you want to fold over and pull it back tight on it and roll it up. And if chicken tries to peek out, push him back in. Now you want to put it seam side down in your pan on top of your sauce. And you want to put them in relatively tight, but you don't have to put them in. You don't have to push them so far together that you're not going to be able to get them apart. Now, as you can see, I've got them all rolled up and in the pan. And see, you can still see the definition of each enchilada. That way you'll be able to portion them out easily. Now we are going to take that beautiful, beautiful white sauce and we are going to start just drizzle it. Just drizzle it over because you don't want to dump too much in one spot and not have enough. You want to be able to spread it fully around and get it all over everything. And as you can see, it's gotten nice and thick now. That cream cheese really thickens it up a lot. Now you want to spread it out to every corner. Make sure you spread it out really evenly. And remember, you've got the second sauce, the enchilada sauce, on the bottom. So it's kind of two sauces, which makes it amazing. These are probably my favorite enchiladas. Although I have been known to love red sauce enchiladas, I love any enchiladas. And I know Jason does too. I think enchiladas is probably one of his favorite meals.
Hard to say favorite because you have about 100 different things I can eat that is favorite.
Yeah, that's true. I think he just likes my cooking.
Yeah. Best job in America. Eating Angela K's cooking.
Now we are going to top this with our cheese. I am using about 3 cups of shredded Monterey Jack. Monterey Jack works perfect for this. It melts so well. It has such a beautiful flavor and a beautiful melting ability. I have grated this. I should say Jason has grated this himself. He's my lovely assistant sometimes. If he's here with me while I'm doing these videos, he's my lovely assistant. So now you want to make sure that the cheese is pushed out to every edge of the pan. If you can find it in pre-shredded, you can use it, but it's not going to melt as beautifully. This is going to be creamy and beautiful on top. If you use pre-shredded, it's going to be a little clumpy and not going to melt as smooth. Now you want to put this in your preheated 375 degree oven. And you will let this bake until it's nice and bubbly, till you start to see everything bubble. The cheese is starting to melt. It may brown a little or it may not. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Now this beautifulness is out of the oven and they smell insanely good. As you can see, they just browned a tiny bit around the edges. Sometimes they will brown more in the middle, but most of the time they do not. They baked for between 25 and 30 minutes to be exact. Mine baked for exactly 30 minutes until everything was nice and bubbly and brown. Now you do want to let this sit and cool just for a few minutes because otherwise you will burn the skin off your lips. But they are creamy, a tiny bit spicy, and just absolutely delicious. These will become your favorite enchiladas. So come back next time to Angela K's Kitchen, where I take you from gourmet to everyday and everything in between. God bless.
Okay, I got a beautiful plate of enchiladas here. I'm afraid I'm gonna burn myself. But we'll see. I'm gonna need a minute. So stinking delicious. So much flavor, creamy and cheesy, just full of bold flavor from the spices. Just so good, so amazingly good. I enjoy this every time, and I remind that every time that I eat it why I enjoy it every time. It's so amazing, and I'm so excited to eat it. So I'm gonna go eat. All right, but Angela K, she can really cook, y'all.
If you can find Monterey Jack and pre-sweated. Yes, pre-sweated. Yes, it's pre-sweated cheese. That way you don't have to worry about sweating it yourself.